Okay. Hi, everybody. So I'm just going to quickly go through some of the exam questions and just give you like quick answers for all of them. Probably not going to do everything, but just as a quick mark scheme. So let's go ahead and look at this. So the first question for 2 marks: create a public class called employee, which includes 5 instance variables. Use your best judgment to determine the data types for each of these variables. So you need a variable called. Let's do that really quickly. So up here, click on add file, employee.java. Okay. So it's going to be a public class. It's going to be called employee. Okay. Please make sure that you're following the naming conventions. Classes are usually capitalized. Yeah. And it's going to have some instance variables. So instance variables. This is. I'm just going to comment this out and say this is question 1. All right, and need to have. So what I think you should always do is just write out the variables and then determine what their type should be. Okay, position and salary and count. All right, there you go. Now I think name and surname quite obviously should be string. If you decide to do something else, you can declare them in the same line like this. Actually, I can declare position as a string as well, like this. I need to separate each of them with a comma. All right, don't need this anymore. Name, surname, position. So I still need. Sorry, I deleted something by accident. Okay, salary and count. So maybe the salary should be a double, the count should be an integer. Now remember, this just keeps track of it just keeps track of all the number of employees created, employee objects created. So let's look at employee ID. It's a unique identification for each employee. Now you could have this as an int, a double. You could even have this as a string realistically, but I'm just going to make it an int, yeah? So it tells you that you should make these all public, right? So string is declared as a public, employee ID declared as a public, and count is declared as a public. Now the salary, since it's indicated with a minus sign right here, it should be declared as a, you see that, should be declared as a private variable. So that's question 1. That's entire question 1 done. Okay, so just gotten 2 marks. The next question says create a default constructor. Actually, if you read the description of count, it says variable used to count how many objects of type employee was created. So in that case, because this is a counter, it should be static. Okay, that's very important. Okay. So question 2, we're going to make a default constructor. So it pretty much tells you to create a default constructor where the name variable is employee concatenated with the value of count, set the surname and position variables equal to the empty strings, and set the salary variable to minimum wage of Thailand, which is 325 Thai baht per day. Also assumes there's 20 working days every month. So if you look back up at salary, it says numeric value representing the monthly wage of the employee. All right, so let's do that. So remember, the constructor has the same name as the class, so employee. Since it's a default constructor, it takes no parameters, no arguments. And it tells you to set the name variable equal to employee concatenated with the value of count. Now, if you concatenate a string with a non-string data type, Java will automatically convert this into a string. One of the problems is when an employee is created, though, obviously you don't want count to be 0. As soon as the employee is created, you want the count to increment. So the first employee that's created should be employee 1, not employee 0. So before I do this, I'm going to increment count here. Instead of doing this, you could also have done count equals count plus 1 if you wanted to, but you can just increment it because it has a default value. Count has a default value set up as soon as this object is initialized, and that is 0. Okay, and this way your name will be employee1 when employee is set up. Right. So it says set the surname and position variables equal to empty strings. So let's do that. Surname is an empty string, and position is an empty string as well. Now, realistically, if you just wanted to leave them as empty strings, if you wanted to, you could just not even write these two lines, but I'm going to anyway. All right. It says set the salary to the minimum wage of Thailand. So the salary is equal to 325 baht a day, but since this value is supposed to represent the numeric value representing the monthly wage, I'm going to multiply this times 20. Okay, and I can leave it like that. You don't have to work out that math. You can just let Java work out that math for you. And at the very end, it says increment the count variable, but I've already taken care of that up here. Okay, all right, that's question 2, done. Now question 3, it asks you to create an overloaded constructor to the employee class, which receives 3 parameters: string name, string last name, and string position. So again, let's go. This is just another constructor, another way to initialize object of type employee. So it's going to have the same name as before, right? Sorry. Okay, but this one will actually, let me go in a little bit. There you go. But this constructor, unlike the previous one, will take parameters, and the parameters that it's taking is string f name and string l name and string POS for position. Okay, separated by commas. And it says, using comments, type out the method signature. So let's quickly type out the method signature for this method. I will write method signature. Remember, so the method signature determines which constructor to call or which method to call in which given instance, right? So depending on what type of parameters you pass, so if you pass no parameters, it will call this constructor, and if you pass the parameters string, 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 it will call this constructor. So the method signature is the method name followed by a list of the types that it's expecting as parameters. So the method signature in this case is employee, and then string, 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 and that's it. Okay. Let me kind of put this away. It's not as important at the point. Give me some more space. There you go. All right. So now that we've done that, let's go ahead and finish this method. So it tells you using comments, type out the method signature, did that. So use the parameters to initialize the instance variables of the employee class. Make sure the count and salary variables are initialized the same way as in the default construction. So the salary is going to be the same. So I can do the same thing as I did before, count plus plus. Start with that. Salary equals 325 multiplied by 20. Okay, and then what I can do is name equals what the parameter that you're getting, and surname equals the parameter you're getting, and position equals the parameter you're getting. And that's question 3, done. All right. Okay, so moving on. So let's look at question 4 for 2 points. Salary is a private variable, so create accessor and mutator methods for the variable with the name getSalary and setSalary respectively. Write out the implementations for each of these methods. So getSalary will pass a value of the salary back to the client, and setSalary allows a client to pass a value changing the salary of a specific object type employee. Okay, so let's do that. So this is going to be question 4. Okay, so we're going to create accessors and mutators. I can't spell apparently. Accessors and for the salary variable. Okay, so I'm telling you it's a public salary. So for the get salary, the first one we're going to do, which is an accessor. Just remember, an accessor is a method which does not change the attributes of an object. So it does not change anything inside the object. Just return something. So salary is type double. So this method should return a double. We're going to type in get salary. Takes no parameters, and the only thing it should do is just return the value of the salary variable, and that's it. The next one, it will change the value of salary, so public, but this method won't return anything. It's set salary. Oops, sorry. And this one will take a parameter, so you need to give it a value. The client needs to pass some sort of a value so it can change this method. So let's do that. It has to be type double, and you can call it whatever you want. I'm just going to call it S. Or if you want to stick with like self-documenting variables, you can call this something like new salary. Yeah, and this method is just one line as well, so it's setting the instance variable salary equal to new salary, which you're receiving as a parameter, and that's question 4 done. So that's part 1 complete. Now, so it says consider the method headers below. The first one says public calc tax. So this is question 5. It's quite a big one. Okay. So let's do the first part of this. So public double calc tax. So I'm giving you the method header here, so you can type that in completely. Public double calc tax. All right. And what I'm expecting you to do is to tell me exactly, calculate the amount of tax an employee should pay on his or her salary on a monthly basis. Implement this method using the data provided in the table below. So there's data here. This table shows you basically, like, depending on how much you make, you have some tax. And this method will calculate the tax for any employee, right? So I'm not going to do all of them, but I will do a few. So notice, though, that this table shows you income tax rate on an annual percentage. So if you have 0 to 150, if you make from 0 baht to 150,000 baht, your tax rate is 0%, and this is per annum, right? Notice our salary is saved on a monthly basis. So what we can do is really quickly is just make a variable here. We call it double. We can call it something like annual salary. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my salary variable and I'm going to multiply it by 12. So that tells me how much I'm making on a yearly basis, right? And then I have to make basically a sequence of conditional statements here to check whether or not my salary fits into one of these ranges. So there's many different ways you can set up these if statements. Really, you don't really have to set up the ranges. I'm just going to do a few of these. Let's say I'm just going to do, like, let's say I'm going to do up to 500,000. Okay, you should be doing them all. So I'm going to say if annual salary, if annual salary is less than or equal to 150,000, then obviously what we're going to do is we're going to say I need to create another variable here called double tax and initialize it to 0 for now. So if annual salary is less than 150,000, so say tax equals 0. All right, and have an else if, and By the way, if it helps you, what you could do is you can put brackets around here so you can see what the condition is very specifically. So if it's obviously, if it's not less than 150,000, then it's more than 150,000. So on my next category, what I can just do is I can say if annual salary is less than or equal to 300,000, then do something, obviously. Okay, so I'll just stop there. So 300,000, 500,000, and 750,000. 300,000, 500,000. I'm just gonna stop there, okay? And I'll just do an else because I'm getting lazy. But here you can say tax equals, as a percentage, do 5, right? And in this case, tax equals as a percentage 10. For if you're making from 300 to 500,000, you're paying 10% in taxes. All right, and let's just simplify this for now and just say tax equals 15, but you should go ahead and finish all of these conditions. Okay, so you want to return the tax, but you don't want to return the tax. What you want to return is how much tax the employee is paying on a monthly basis, right? Tax the employee is paying from his or her salary on a monthly basis, as it states in the question. So we're going to have to change this a little bit. Or actually, we can leave it exactly the way it is, but what you want to do is show you take the tax, and this is how much tax you're paying. You know the annual salary, right? If the annual salary is equal to salary times 12, and now you can figure out what the tax is. So what you want to do is take the annual salary, yeah, divided by 100, okay, and you want to it gives you 1%, and then you want to multiply it by the tax percentage. Yeah, I mean, you could do this in a different way, right? And you can just return that value, and if you just return that value, you should get exactly what the amount of tax that the user is paying. So you're taking their annual salary, you're dividing it by 100, and you're multiplying it by the tax number. So for example, if the user is making 100,000 baht, the annual salary, the tax value should be 0%, and then you just, then you're paying no tax here, right? If this person is making less than, let's say, 150 to 300,000 baht, the tax is 5. So you'll take their annual salary, so 300,000 divided by 100, you get 3,000. You multiply it by 5, which is 15,000. But that's how much tax they're paying on annual basis. So what you want to do is, at that point, you want to take this entire number and you want to divide it by 12, so you can see what they are paying on a monthly basis. There you go, and I can divide that by 12. Okay, and that's it. And I mean, you could have made a variable out of this if you wanted to. I don't know. I just don't feel like doing it. Also, if you want to, you could have set up tax in a slightly different way. But this is good enough for now. So that's my calculate tax. Let's look at the next part of this. The void increase salary, double percentage, and it says this method increases an employee's salary in terms of a percentage based on the parameter of percentage received. Okay, so let's do that. Let's go public void increase salary, and it's going to take a double, and it's going to take a percentage. Okay, so let's say the salary is going to be increased by 10%. So if you get 10 as this parameter, what do you do to your salary? That's the implementation we're looking for. So we want to do something with salary. and it will you just basically you're going to set a new value for salary, right? And it has to do something with percentage. So assume this number is 10. I think it helps if you start assuming numbers. So let's say this guy wanted a 10% increase, so he passed the parameter 10 here. So what you can do to a salary is you can do salary equals the old value of salary multiplied by, sorry, you want to take this number that you're receiving as a percentage and you want to divide it by 100, right? Okay, well, that's not correct yet either. Salary equals salary time 10 divided by 100, which will give you 0.01, right? There you go. And now you can just replace percentage in that sense, okay? So what you did here is you're saying 1 plus 1 plus whatever the percentage was. So if it was 10, right, you're going to do 10 divided by 100. And what that gives you is it gives you 0.1. So this entire value would become 1.1. So if you just do salary times 1.1, that will be increasing it by 10%. And again, you can do it in a slightly different way if you'd like, but I'm going to leave it as that. And the next question basically says the exact same thing, but this time instead of increasing the salary by a percentage value, it just wants you to increment it with a it just wants you to increment it by an absolute int value, all right? Just so you're aware, these from lines 59 to 62, lines 54 to 57 are also overloaded methods because they have the same name. Now, the reason I can't use a double here is because in that case, these will both have exactly the same method signature, and the Java compiler would not know which method to call because they both would have the exact same method signature. So in this case, it's much simpler. You're increasing your salary with an absolute value, and since you're doing it with an absolute value, you can just say salary equals salary plus value, and that's it. Now, just so you know, this is correct, but you could use the compounding operators here to make your life a lot easier. And just so you know, this also is correct, but you can also use the compounding operators here to make your life much easier. Okay, 1 plus, and in this sense, I wouldn't need all those brackets either. So percentage divided by 100. There you go. All right. So if you want to use compounding operators, you'd get full marks for doing this, but you know, why not use compounding operators when you can? Yeah. So that's it for second part. Apparently I have another part 2. I will fix this before you take the actual quiz. So I will do this really quickly, but this question is all to do with the main class and testing the methods out. So let's quickly do that. Let's go into the main method. Let's go here. Assume this is our driver class. So the first question says, and this is question 6. It says, create an object of type employee class. The object reference should be named A and initialized using the default constructor of the employee class. So to do that really quickly, all you're going to do is just go employee, it's supposed to be called A equals new employee, and if it should be initialized using the default constructor, that's it. You don't need to give it any parameters. It says change A's position to director of technology. So because the position variable is a public variable, you can just go director of technology, and that's okay. It's public, right? And then it says change A's salary to 150,000. Now this is a little bit problem. You can't go A dot salary equals 150,000. Okay, and you can't do this because it's a private variable, right? Salary is private. So what you need to do at this point to get around this is you need to use the set salary method, right? And in that method, you could actually say, all right, here you go, 150, 000. Okay, and because it's expecting a double, you can do that. Yeah. Sorry, let me just go back to the employee class really quickly and make sure that that is what my, yeah, set salary, double new salary. Yeah. Okay, and it says change A's salary, done that, and it says print A's taxes using the calc tax method. By the way, this is question 7. So print A's taxes using the calc tax method. So system.out.println. This is A's taxes, and I'm just going to concatenate this with the value of A dot. There you go. Okay. Now you don't have to do all this. You could have just system.out.println a.calctax if you're being lazy. That's fine too. So finish question 7. Let's do question 8 really quickly. So same idea now, but this time I'm going to give it a I'm going to create another instance of the employee class, and the object reference should be named B, initialize the object using overloaded constructors of the employee class. So there's only one overloaded constructor. It expects 3 types of string: name, surname, position. So I'm just going to do this really quickly. Now, I know I want you to use the scanner class, but I'm not going to show you how to do that. At this point, you should already know how to do that. So I'm just going to leave it. I'm just going to, just do some placeholder stuff really quickly. Name, surname, and let's say teacher. You know what? I'll just fill in my details here. Okay. You should be using the scanner class, and remember to use the scanner class, what you should be doing is importing the scanner class. So import java.util.scanner. Now I know some of you like to go import java.util.all, and if you want to do that, that's fine too. Okay, so this is part 4. Question 9 says A and B are instances of the employee class. Assume you want to print the details. So if you type in system.out.println A and system.out.println B, it prints useless information. So what I want you to do here is I want you to rewrite the public string toString class, public string toString method. And I want you to write a new implementation for the toString method such that it prints useful information for each object of type employee. So surname, position, and salary. Right, so the print employee A and B and print the count variable. So in this case, we have to go back to the employee class, and back in the employee class, right at the bottom, we're going to go ahead and do number 9, and this is rewriting the toString class, right? The toString method. Sorry. So again, I've given you the method header, so you can just copy it. Public string toString, and this method takes no parameters. What we want to do is to rewrite it such that it prints, such that it returns name, surname, and position. All I have to really do is just go ahead and type a return statement, and it needs to return a type string as it's specified up here. Going to say the name of the employee concatenated with the name variable, and then the surname of the employee concatenated with and what I like to do is I like to organize things like that. And again, remember, spaces aren't interpreted in Java. Concatenated with the surname variable and position, or actually, yeah, position of the employee concatenated with the position variable, and lastly the salary of the employee concatenated with salary variable, and that's it. If you like to organize this better, you could have something like name, surname, and before you print position and salary, you can have a new line just to kind of clean things up a little bit. Again, this is not completely necessary, but you know, I kind of like having it this way. Now, this isn't it for number 9 because it does say print the count variable as well. So it's print employee A and B and print the count variable. So I have to go back to the main class, and there's a continuation of 9 here. I'm going to call this testing the toString method, and what we do here is quite simply just write and I'm going to copy and paste it and print B as well, and I also want to print the count variable. Okay, so because I've created 2 objects, I've created an object A and an object B. Here, line 8, you can see object A, and here in line 17, you can see object B. So the count should output 2. If you want some information here, you can concatenate this with some sort of a string that says, you know, number of employees okay, something like that. And again, yeah, just recall that this line should output 2. I'm not going to test it out, but anyway, moving on. So number 10, it says write a method called isSenior inside the employee class, which takes an object of type employee as its parameter. The method should correctly compare 2 objects and print whether object being compared is senior, junior, or equivalent, such that if I type in a.isSeniorB, then it should return B is more senior than A. Now, obviously, it's not going to return B, or it's not going to return B is more senior than A. It's going to return the object name is more senior than another object name, or so on and so forth. So this is number 10. So I can just run something like a.isSenior. Obviously, this method doesn't exist, and we can put B in there, and it should output who is more senior. Now, just so we understand, employee A was created by the default constructor, and employee B, right? Employee A's salary in this line 13, was changed to 150,000. Employee B was created using the overloaded constructor, and employee B's salary is the default salary as set in the employee class. So if we go back here, you can see that employee B's salary will be determined by this line, which is 325 times 20, and employee A's salary is 150,000 a month. So we need to write the isSenior method here, okay? And in this method, basically, I haven't given you almost anything here, so the questions are getting more difficult, right? You want to basically go, all right, so you can make this public, private, whatever you want. It doesn't really matter. I'm just going to make it public to make it easier. So this is going to return a string, okay? Or it doesn't have to return a string. It could return nothing. It's up to you. I'm leaving this implementation to you. You want to create a isSenior method. It takes a parameter of type employee, and let's say it calls the employee X. It doesn't really matter what we call the employee. Okay, so what we want to do is compare the current class. So in the current class, you can just compare salary. So if salary is greater than X dot salary, right, then we're going to say system.out.println, we're going to say something like this. We're going to say name is more senior than, concatenate that with x.name, all right, and that's it. And if A is obviously not more, if A is not senior, if it's the same, then we need to have an if-else position, and we can just copy this condition right here and change it a little bit. Instead of saying a salary is greater than, we'll say a salary is equivalent to, and then you say name is equivalent to x.name, close parentheses, and the last condition is obviously, that this is the case. If it's not this and it's not this, then it's obvious that A is junior. Yeah, so I'm just going to say name is junior to x.name, and that's it, right? That's pretty much it. Let me just clean up a little bit here. All right, there you go. And that's it for number 10. That's all that I'm asking you to do in number 10. Now, number 11, it's kind of a problem that you haven't really seen before. So I want you to use the java.util.date package, and it allows you to store accurate time. So the default constructor of the date class returns the current date, today's date. The current date is like whatever date today is. So as you can see, today's date is 29th of October 2019. So this question is telling you to include date as an instance variable in the employee class and call it employed on date. Okay? Include an implementation of the employed on date variable in both constructors such that each time an instance of employee class is created, the employed on date variable is set to the current date. Now you can think of this as a data type if it makes it simpler. Okay? But basically the date data type will store a date, right? A date value, a very specific date value. So this is number 11. Okay, it's using the date. So to use this specific data type, we need to import java.util.date. And again, if you want, you can import everything on Java. That's fine. Now, if I want to store this as an instance variable, I'm just going to call it public. Again, you don't really have to because I don't specify what you should make it. But this variable is of type date, okay? And this variable is called employed on date. Okay? And there you go. I've initialized it. I've included it as an instance variable here. And what I need to do is I need to implement this, so initialize this value employed on date to the current date when the object is created. So in this case, employed on date is going to equal new date, all right? And the implementation is going to be exactly the same for this constructor as well. So when an object is created of type employee class, the employed on date variable is going to store the current date when that object was created. Okay, so in our case, by the way, let me just point out this is number 11. This is also number 11. Okay, so let me just point out, so if I run this code right now, since A is being created today, his employed on date value will store today's date, which is the 29th of October 2019. Since B is being created today, his employed on date will also store today's value, which is the 29th of October 2019. All right, so that's pretty much it. There's some additional information here. If you wanna initialize a date variable which isn't the current date, then what you can do is you can call this method, the date and then the long milliseconds. You can call this method right here, which is a constructor of the date class, right? And what this does is this initializes a date variable, and it will specify how many milliseconds has passed since 1970. Okay, so for today's specific date, exactly this number, okay, exactly this number of milliseconds has passed in 1970, and that will give you today's date if you initialize it like that. Yeah, but that's pretty much it. So let's do the last question right here. So over here, what you're doing is I want you to create a method called increase salary, right? And this method basically increases an employee's salary by $2,000 if the employee has worked at this organization for over 12 months. Use the employee on date variable from question 11 to check the condition and adjust the salary variables appropriately. All right, it says create a second object of type date, use the get month and get year methods from the date class, which returns an integer value of the date object's respective month and year. Create additional instance variables for the employee class. So there may be multiple ways to solve this problem. The way I'm going to do it is I think it's quite straightforward and quite simple. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create two new public instance variables. I'm going to call it, by the way, let me just, okay, so my idea is pretty simple, right? I'm going to have two variables. I'm going to have an integer variable for, let's say, something like year of promotion, okay? And I'm going to have another instance variable that's called month of promotion, right? So when an employee is created, they basically have a public date, employee date, right? And that employee date is, initialized by these constructors right here or right here. So for example, if I created an employee today, you look at line 13, it will create the employee to be created, it will set this value to be 29th of October 2019, okay? And it will set the same value in this constructor as well, the 29th of October 2019. What that means is if you just ignore this date and just look at the month and the year, right? We just look at the month and the year, we understand that the employee should get a promotion on November of 2020. Let's ignore this date just for simplicity's sake, right? November 2020, employee gets a promotion. So the year of promotion should basically also be set up. What I'm going to do is I'm going to initialize these values. The year of promotion is basically going to be the employed on date, yeah, employed on date dot get year, and I'm going to add 1 to it. So employed on date dot get year will give me 2019. If I plus 1, then the year that this person is supposed to get a promotion is 2019 plus 1 is 2020. And we're going to do the same thing with month of promotion. And I'm sorry, I'm a little bit sloppy here with the naming conventions. Actually, you know what? I think I'll fix it. So year of promotion and month of promotion. There you go. Much better. So now I know this is not perfectly accurate. Like you can obviously go, because if basically what should happen here is if well, it's a complexity, right? Because your months go up to 12, so we could have some conditions there just to check to make sure whether, well, whether this value generated here is, well, this value doesn't matter, but whether this value generated here is less than 12. But just for simplicity's sake, we're just going to leave it alone and not deal with it too much. All right. So this value will be initialized to be 2020, and this value will be initialized to be November, right? So instead of 10, it's going to be 11. And I want to have the same implementation down here, right, in both constructors. Now, now what I can do now that I have everything set up is go ahead and set up this method, right? So I have a space here for 12, and I'm just going to put it here because there are these methods: public void, increase salary. So it's kind of you know, it fits in quite nicely. And notice it has a different method signature than the methods in line 76 and line 70. So that's good. I'm just going to copy this actually to save time and put it here. All right, and just change that and get rid of these. Actually, just get rid of this. So what I want to do here is I want to check what the current date is, like today's date. So if that employee, if employee A is, or employee B, if they were created in, for example, like we set up here, 2019, when I run this method, I want to check the date for that specific method. So what I can do is I can create a new date variable, okay? And I'm just going to call it current date, and it equals the current date. All right, and I'm just going to check if the current date is past the time where the employee is supposed to get a promotion. So if the current date dot get year is greater than my year of promotion, yeah, but that's not enough. I can't just check if the current date get year is past my year of promotion. I also need to check if the current date dot get month is greater than my month of promotion. Okay, and if that is true indeed, then what I can do is I can say salary plus equals 2,000, right? Increase the salary by 2,000. But just to kind of clean it up, at this point, this is all I'm really kind of expecting from you, because I know you also don't really have time to do this perfectly. At this point in time, you should also kind of increment the year of promotion. So now the next promotion this employee gets is 2021, and you should also increment the month of promotion. So the next promotion this person gets is no longer in November. Oh, actually, it can just stay November, can't it? Yeah, every year it just stays November, but you increment the year, right? So yeah, there you go. And again, this is not perfect, because obviously if the employee was hired in December 2019, then the increment would be, you know, it would make the month 13, and that month doesn't really exist, and then that wouldn't really work here. But you know, either way, we're just going to leave it at that, just for simplicity's sake. Okay, that's about it. All right, thank you very much for watching.